Welcome to This Week in Morgan County. I'm your host, Russell Mokhiber. Our guest this week is Regina Hendrix. She's with the Sierra Club of the Eastern Panhandle. Regina, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me here.
You are a native West Virginian, born and raised where? And give us a little bit about your life's history.
Well, I was born in Charleston, Kanawha Valley, a long time ago, like 1936. So I have a lot of experience with the pollution and the problems that they have in Charleston. Now, I did leave Charleston in 1955, and when I left, there were 80,000 people there.
Where did you go?
Various places, but mostly I worked in the Washington metro area.
What was your life's work?
Well, a lot of different things. I was a court reporter for a while, and then I worked for IRS in contracting, and that's where I retired.
And did you go back to Charleston?
I went back to Charleston because I love the land around there, and it's very inexpensive to live there. So I went back to Charleston, and people told me that the air had been cleaned up, and I didn't smell the things that I used to smell from the DuPont plant. DuPont could make it appear to be dusk at noontime. But I later found out, after a short while, that they had just stopped emitting effluents during the day, but they were doing it at 2 a.m., and I could go out on the porch and set my clock by that 2 a.m. effluent.
What did you do about the pollution, or what was the response of the citizenry there?
Well, it wasn't just the pollution that inspired me. What made me even more upset was the mountaintop removal. So
tell us, what is that?
Well, they clear off the top of the mountain. Sometimes they're so anxious to get to the coal that they roll the trees under, which makes it difficult to ever put anything there because the trees rot and the land shifts. So they roll off the top of the mountain, and they dump the excess in the valleys, over streams, etc. And then they start blasting. The blasting is huge, huge blast, dynamite circles. Tubes would be a better word. And they put them in the ground, and it lifts off the first layer of the mountain and gets to the coal. Well, they take that first layer, dump it in the valley, and then they get the coal, and then they do the same thing over and over as long as they could reach coal. And that's what really made me angry and made me look for the Sierra Club. I first got with a group of people called Ohio Valley Environmental Coalition. And the way I found them was very interesting. I had moved in, I was living near the Capitol. I had just gotten my stuff put away, and I looked out the window, and Uncle Sam gets out of a car. Then he gets up on stilts. So I ran down real quick and followed him over to the Capitol, and there was a demonstration going there talking about mountaintop removal. And they were really fired up, and I thought, oh, they exaggerate. So anyway, in the course
What year are we talking?
We're talking 1998. So in the course of the protest, they offered a plane ride over the mountaintop removal sites. And I still thought it couldn't be as bad as they said. And I went on this plane ride and saw these huge holes. And I saw one place where they had shaved Caford Mountain so close to the cemetery that I'll swear the coffins must have fallen out. And when I got back, I was sad, but mostly angry. And that's when I signed up to work with OVEC, and I noticed that Sierra Club wasn't there. So I started lobbying the council members of Sierra Club, And pretty soon, Sierra Club was concerned about mountaintop removal. They were very responsive. I'll be grateful the rest of my life. So they came to town, they looked, and they offered us legal help. And we've had legal help ever since.
From Sierra Club.
From Sierra Club. And it's actually a coalition of Sierra Club, Ohio Valley Environmental Coalition, West Virginia Environmental Council, and the fourth one, sorry.
Well, you've been active in, you were active for 20 years then in Charleston.
Well, I was active for 11 years. And then when my family, my basic family of 8, started, I started to realize what was causing cancer. So 6 out of 8 of us have had cancer. The only ones who have escaped it is me and my baby sister. And I have had many relatives with cancer. And I have, right now, my brother is dying with metastasized cancer, and a cousin who has always led a very clean life is having chemotherapy. And my sisters have had chemotherapy, and chemotherapy changes you.
You believe that the high cancer rates in these industrial areas are caused by the industry?
Oh yes, I certainly do.
And it's called Cancer Valley there.
Chemical Valley.
Chemical Valley.
Yes. The Kanawha Valley is known for chemicals because there's a plant on each end of a deep V valley. The DuPont is on one end, Union Carbide, used to be Union Carbide, it's now Bayer, is on the other side. So they pump their effluent out, and when we have a temperature inversion, it captures it, and we in the valley were breathing those chemicals heavily. So that scared me. And after 11 years there, I said, I can't take this anymore. So I moved to the Eastern Panhandle.
What year?
2009. So I moved to the Eastern Panhandle because I knew there was no coal underground, and I knew there was no gas. And I figured there would never be this kind of pollution like is proposed by Rockwool.
And that brings us to what we're talking about today. Rockwool, which is a Danish multinational corporation, has decided to put a heavy industry facility across from an elementary school in Jefferson County. How far are you from that facility?
I'm probably maybe 5 miles as the crow flies.
Where do you live? Do you live in Harper's Ferry? Or?
I live in Charlestown, on the western side in Tuscaloosa Hills.
Okay. And tell us your concerns with this proposed facility.
Well, my concern is that some years from now, we will all get sick. And my concern is that, you know, there are only 2 places in West Virginia who are gaining population. It's Eastern Panhandle and Monongalia County. And I saw what happened to Charleston. When I left there in 1955, there were more than 80,000 people there. Right now, there's 49,000. So people are leaving. And they're leaving because of the Bayer explosion that happened there in 2008. That's why I left. And they're leaving because of the water crisis when 300,000 people lost their water in Charleston in 2014.
Do you believe that this is a Danish multinational corporation that has facilities around the world, but in the United States it has facilities in Mississippi and West Virginia? Do you believe that they see Mississippi and West Virginia as third world type states where there's weak regulation and they can get away with what they want to do?
I do believe that, and I think because the EU has gotten so restrictive about these chemicals that our West Virginia Development Office, it seems to me, everything they come back with is polluting. And I think we are looked at as a third world country.
What has been the nature of the response, the community's response in Jefferson to this proposed facility?
Oh, I'm so proud of that. I'm so glad you asked that. In West Virginia, when we were, in southern West Virginia, when we were doing the mountaintop removal fight, we were lucky to get 50 people. But we've got hundreds of people again and again, and we've got the website, that CCAR website, with, I think it's about 6,000 people now. I'm so proud and so happy the way people came out in Charlestown or in Jefferson County, all over Jefferson County, really.
This is a Facebook page, Citizens Concerned About Rockwool.
Yes.
And in just a couple of weeks, there's more members than there are people in Jefferson County almost. I mean, how many people are in Jefferson County? That's an exaggeration.
Yeah, I think maybe it's, I'm not sure, 55,000.
And 7,000 people on the Facebook page.
Yes. And as soon as Tim Cook did that article with me on the Rockwool, people started acting. Somebody set the Facebook page up.
Tim Cook is a reporter for?
He's a reporter for the
Spirit of Jefferson, which is the local newspaper there.
Yes.
I was listening to a news report on WTOP, which is the news outlet in Washington. And the chief executive officer of Rockwool said, in Jefferson County, there are very few who are very negative about this plan.
Oh, what a shock.
Is he underestimating? I mean, you're one of the, he would say you're one of the very few who's very negative. But is he right in that there are very few who are very negative?
Well, Russell, when hundreds of people show up at a commission meeting, hundreds, literally, and hundreds of people at the board, well, the Board of Education, we did not have a rally in front of it, but there have been 3 times when hundreds of people have showed up and protested and stood along Washington Street in Charlestown and held their signs, and people were cheering them on. So it's not just a few people.
Well, he said a very few who are very negative. Their permit says there's going to be 393 tons a year of hazardous air pollutants. Those are pollutants. Hazardous air pollutants are pollutants that cause cancer and birth defects and so forth. But it's permitted. That means it's within legal limits. So what's your concern? There are these tall smokestacks that are going to move the pollutants out of the way. What's your concern that if it's permitted legal activity, what is your concern?
Well, Russell, my concern is that I have had much experience with the West Virginia Department of Pollution, or Protection, sorry. I've had a lot of experience. They'll permit anything. I don't know, there was maybe one time that they turned down a mountaintop removal permit. So the permit is very, very loose, and they throw it out there, and they're severely understaffed. And what they do is depend on self-reporting. And I have known them in instances to get reports of violations, one after another. And they're so short of staff that they just ignore it. And I feel very certain, since they're so many miles from here, that there'll be very little involvement of the DEP, and I know that they're short-handed, and I've seen them ignore self-reports in the past, not follow up on them when somebody was reporting violations.
What do you know about the history of Rockwool operating around the world?
Well, I had never heard the name until recently, but I have looked into some problems they've had in Croatia, where people are, where they had an accident while they were bringing it up, much like the Bayer accident that happened in Charleston, and just polluted the area, and the people were up in arms. And from what I hear, they're still up in arms about it because of the pollution. And what I read about Rockwool is that they have a habit of going somewhere and staying for about 10, 15 years and then leaving. And the cancer comes out afterwards and people get sick. And they try to say that it's not from their chemicals, but I believe it is. And we have to be aware of the fact that there are only 70-some chemicals that have been tested here in the USA, and the rest were deemed non-hazardous, like that MCHM4 that polluted the water in 2014 in Kanawha Valley.
What is the status of the organization that's being built to fight this facility?
That's the thing that makes me so happy, that after the story came out, that young people, people with children, organized on their own. One person, I think it was Amanda Fox, who set up the Facebook page. People started getting on it in droves. And then they had a meeting at Sam Michaels Park, and they organized voluntarily. They put themselves together as a group. Of course, they came to Sierra Club first because that's how I got contacted, because they know that Sierra Club will commit resources to fights. I'm eternally grateful that they fought mountaintop removal in southern West Virginia. And I'm hoping they'll do the same here if need be.
Does Sierra Club want this facility to operate in a clean manner, or does Sierra Club want to stop this facility?
Sierra Club wants to stop this facility because they do not believe that it can operate in a clean manner when you take into consideration what they're doing, the amount of water that's used, and the heat, and the noise, and the Rockwool will be trucking in rocks and bringing them in by truck and train. So it changes the character of the Eastern Panhandle. And I came to the Eastern Panhandle to live when I got so worried about the chemicals, and I never dreamed that anyone would propose putting chemicals down in one of the places in West Virginia that's gaining population. Because, you know, surely in Charleston they know that after we get polluted that people will be leaving. So people have already left the coal fields. Any number of little villages there have been destroyed.
Who are the elected officials who have come out against the facility and supported your position that we don't want it here?
Well, you mean in the Eastern Panhandle?
Eastern Panhandle, yeah.
Well, we appeared before the Jefferson County Council the other night, and there were 5 council members there. Three of them have spoken out, and they're with us. And another one, I believe, will.
And how many council members are there?
There are 5.
You believe that 4 out of the 5 council members of the Jefferson Council are now opposed to this, or might be opposed to this?
Oh, they stated that night after the meeting was over, they stated that Josh Compton, the head of the council president, stated that he felt he had been fooled and that he was going to certainly look into this. And Jane Tabb had tears in her eyes when these people came up with their children and talked. And Caleb Hudson told me after the hearing that he comes from Nitro, which is it's in this valley, and he doesn't want to see Kanawha County come to Eastern Panhandle.
But the Jefferson County Council originally green-lighted this proposal. They could have stopped it.
They could have stopped it, and what I'm getting from them is they didn't know enough about it. Plus, all of the local council, all of the local government people who worked this problem or this recruitment signed non-disclosure agreements to keep it hidden from the citizens until it was a fait accompli, and here it was. Ranson went out of their way to develop land that was not contiguous to the city, or went out of its way to
rezone.
And so this plan's been going on for a long time, and nobody had a chance to know.
Well, the company points out, and it's true, that this was in the papers a year ago in July of 2017. There was formal notice. The council knew, and now because of the political pressure, the council is changing its mind. Can the council now stop it? And how could they?
I think if the council and the board would speak out, the Board of Education would speak out that we could stop it. And I'm certainly promoting that that's what they do, and I'll do everything in my power to see that they'll be with us.
And also you have, I read, the mayor of Charlestown,
yes,
who's opposed to it, and is opposed to the gas pipeline coming into the county, also for fear of heavy industry coming.
Yes, if they come over the line with that gas, then I fear that the West Virginia Development Office will be out finding more polluting industry for us.
Finally, would you or someone from your group be interested in a public debate between yourself and the leaders of the company, for example, the CEO, Trent Ogilvie? You think if we could arrange something like that, we could work it out?
Yes, I would find people who are far more knowledgeable about chemicals than I am. I've been getting calls from the Clean Air Chair in Sierra Club in California, and she'd be one I would ask. And then I would probably ask Dr. Armendariz, the person who evaluated the permit for us. Yes.
And what did that doctor say about the permit?
Oh, I have 5 pages of problems that he had to say about it. He felt they were not using the best available technology, and Rockwool says that they are. So.
All right, so we'll try and we'll talk with the CEO of Rockwool and see if we can set up some kind of debate, and we'll be following this quite closely.
Well, I think that would be good.
So,
and I'll be recruiting people who understand the chemical process.
Very good. We'll look forward to do that if we can arrange it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having us and for letting us put out this story that is so frightening to not just Jefferson County, but the counties all around us.
Thank you again, and thank you for watching This Week in Morgan County.